So wow, it's kind of crazy seeing everybody here, and I know half of you from IRC, so it's like talking to like a group of friends. I just really quick want to say a few things. First of all, we got these sponsors here, and these people had enough faith in you that they wanted to spend money so that you'd see them. So, think about that. If you don't know something about them, just look them up, learn a little bit. I want to thank Chris Borgia, who's doing all the recording. He kind of decided to offer up his services and expertise and everything, and so then all the people who actually sponsored him. So that's good too. So thanks everybody. Yeah. So Jessica D'Amico, did I say that right? At Just Jess DC, two S's. She organized like the whole event. It's amazing. So yeah. So my talk is a little bit different. I don't have actually like any code or like anything like that. So I've been, yeah, I guess. Here. So yeah, this is me. I've been programming for a while, and I'm got into Linux for a bit, and I really love programming games and mobile apps and stuff like that. But that's just like the gist of it. You can follow me, and if I only really talk about Laravel, so. This is my company. So right now we have 3 people. We started in like 2 years ago. There was just 2 of us. My designer and I worked at a design firm, and after a couple years of working together, we're like, we can do this on our own, right? So a year later, we're thinking maybe we should find jobs. But I'm really glad we stuck it out because we learned a lot of stuff. And if we wouldn't have stuck it out, then I don't know if that 1 year would have been kind of a waste of time and money, right? So we actually hired on a 3rd guy, but we can't talk about who he is yet because he's kind of in a transitional state. So that's been exciting. So I've never hired anybody, but yeah, I'm a programmer, so I don't have any business skills. And that's probably why after 1 year we were thinking about hanging up our hats. And so it's kind of a mess. There's a lot of things that you have to know about managing clients, and you get into the situation where you just want to get work in, and you're like wanting to pop out business and send out invoices, and there's a lot more to think about. So I'm going to talk about 2 things that I think are really important, and not only that, I think that they're kind of general. So we're a small company, and we have 2 people, and we do custom web apps, and every once in a while we do an odd design job. And your company might be pretty different. You might have one major client or who knows what, but I think in general these 2 things are basically relevant to a lot of people. So I'm going to focus on that. The first is factors to consider when you're deciding whether or not to take a contract. You can really kind of get yourself into a mess with contracts, and it's really important to make sure that you choose something that's a good fit. And the second is how to structure your development to suit small teams. So you work in a large company, and you kind of have like project management and everything, but programmers who have to deal with clients, who have to deal with their own jobs. We have to develop the application, and we also have to manage our project. And so there's a lot of skills that you may miss out on at first. So you have to build up over time. And here, factors to consider when choosing contracts. So obviously, like income, I don't even know why I have this slide. It's like so obvious. You work for money, and that's like the gist of it. Not only does it pay the bills, but you can throw money into your account, and it helps get through the low tide. So that's important. This is a really big one to me. Future opportunity. So if you have a contract come in and it could function as a portfolio piece, it's going to give people the opportunity to kind of see what you can do, and that's going to be really important for developers who come out and who want to run their own businesses, and nobody knows about them. You're just some guy and some girl, something, and you need to prove who you are. So if you can get the contracts, you might choose to take a little bit less money to have a reasonable portfolio piece. And then of course repeat business if you're functioning like the same client over and over again. That's really, it reduces the need for client acquisition, and that's super important. But really, the thing that matters the most is word of mouth. If somebody's super happy with you, their peers are going to be generally the kind of people who are making decisions about who to work with, and those are the people who you want to hear about you. So you'll make a client happy, and the people related to them will be happy to hear more about you, and might be interested in working with you. So that's super important. With every contract, you're obviously going to get better with dealing with clients, managing the project, and of course, you end up working with different technologies, and so these might be things you take into consideration when choosing a contract. But there are some serious things to deal with that you have to mitigate. So you have the payment risk. You're probably not going to charge everything outright, and it's possible that the client's not going to pay you. So that's something you have to deal with, and you have to have policies in place to manage that. Then there's the time risk, which is a lot less obvious. So if you have like one developer and one designer, and you take a contract, then there's all this time that you can't resell. So you have a contract, and you kind of took it because you were nervous about filling a certain amount of time in the month, and then next week, an amazing opportunity comes around that you can't take. It's something that you have to kind of weigh back and forth. Am I willing to take a contract that is maybe suboptimal, and then turn down something that's going to come around the corner? So it's a very real concern, and it really kind of bit us multiple times where we would feel pressured to take on more work, and we'd work through it, but then we weren't able to do something really cool, and that was like unfortunate. So you have to make sure that also that you're a really good fit for the job, because maybe your technical expertise don't directly line up with the needs of the app, and you want to take that client on because you want to run a business, and you're a developer, and you think that if I don't turn this stuff over, I'm going to go out of business right away. But in reality, you have to make sure that you can do a super solid job, because like I said, word of mouth is absolutely everything, and you do it one good job and another just kind of comes around the corner. It's just that fast. You hear developers kind of complain a lot about dealing with clients. They might need regular daily updates, so you might have to take 30 minutes of your day every day to kind of inform them about what's going on with their projects. You might have to, they might tell you that, we had some business policy change. We need to update the text on our site, and we expect it to happen now. And you kind of have to drop what you're working on and turn that around. Or, if they're relying on you for mission critical systems, then you have to be willing to, stop what you're doing and fix them. And, these aren't really necessarily things to complain about. It's things to think about from the beginning. So is this client going to have these needs? You need to talk about them up front and make sure that, you're on the same page. What are your responsibilities? And then just take that into consideration when you're managing your projects, because, you can't be expected to do too much outside of what you agreed on, but you need to make sure that if they have a problem that, you're able to either help them resolve it or figure out how they can find somebody who can. Right. So if you're sitting here, you're probably going to be pretty good at writing a PHP app and not maybe as good at writing an iPad game. So, it's cool to play with new technologies, but if you're learning something, you have to really make sure that what you end up delivering is of professional quality. So you can prototype your own stuff out, for 3 weeks, and then at the end you have kind of a mess, but it works. That's not really super optimal for your client. So if they're paying you, you have to make sure that, if you're going to accept the contract, that at the end of the day, you're going to put out something that you're professionally proud of, and it's not going to be a big mess. Right. So lifestyle. You probably didn't make or try to make your own company because you wanted to be working around the clock, and you wanted to be underpaid, and you wanted to be stressed out and not spend time with your family. or maybe you did, I guess. If that's the case, then you're probably on the right track. But every contract that you take, it's what you do. The things that you work on, these things are a big part of your life. And if you're not working on something that makes you happy, if you're working on something that's stressing you out, then that's going to seriously, diminish your quality of life. So you have to make sure that you're going to be happy. Because if not, you might as well find a company that has a workflow that suits you and just work for them. But if you're doing things for yourself, if you're deciding I can do things on my own, I can do things my way, then make sure that you're not, stressed out and, losing out on your one resource, your one finite resource, which is your lifespan. And things will go horribly wrong. As you all know, things will go horribly wrong. Yeah, you can really mess up a budget. Yeah, it's not terribly uncommon for a development team to go 200% over budget. And I've been part of teams like that, and I've seen it happen. When setting your budgets, I think that there sometimes is a managerial pressure to keep the budgets low and acceptable to your clients. And consequently, I think developers start to believe that they're really horrible at figuring out how much time something is going to take. But I think that after a while, we get a good idea of how long something is going to take. And if we deliver that to our management and they tell us this is just not acceptable, then we have to come up with a number that they think is going to be good. And then we give them a new number, and when things don't work out, it's because they can come back to us and say, "Well, you gave us this number," and you feel bad, and you're not appropriately appreciated, all because you weren't able to create an appropriate budget. So, sticking to your budget and following through is just really important, and you shouldn't feel pressured to come up with a smaller budget. If the client can't afford your services, then you need to find a new client or sell smaller services, sell less to them. Scope creep is a pretty big deal. You kind of have to be a firm person to be able to prevent that from happening. And it can be difficult because you could have a client with a 200-hour project budget and they want an e-commerce site. And you figure it all out. You figure out how the plan comes together, and you're basically maxing out their budget, which leaves no additional time for whatever may go wrong. And then they come to you and say, "Yes, but we forgot. We need to have certain types of discount codes that are very unorthodox, and we need reporting on those, some minimal amount of reporting." And we actually have this now, and our business is kind of based on analyzing this data. So we can't actually switch over to this new system until it gets built in to the current system. But we don't have any budget. So at this point in time, you might think, well, how bad can it be, right? Discount codes? But then you end up throwing a whole bunch of your own time at the project, and you're becoming frustrated, and you realize that the rates that you're charging, which are there to support you to pay for your costs in your life, these things are all being attacked, and you feel less secure, and you feel like you want to push through a bunch of shortcuts, and that's never going to be good. So I'll talk more about that, mitigating that in a minute. But this is something that I think we do all the time as programmers, because we get this idea that if we really perfect this piece of code, we will be able to make an infinite amount of money out of it. If I make this code perfect, I can use it in every single project that I ever make again. So has anybody, quick show of hands, made something immaculate for the purpose of modularizing their code and then never used it again? All right, this is like the whole room. So what I kind of figured out what works best for me is I don't try to make something immaculate and ultimately modular. Instead, I focus on making the app really good and making sure that this code fits into the app. And then I just kind of call it a day. And after you spend 40 hours making some relatively basic subsystem, you're disgusted by your original approach anyway, because you just had 40 hours of education over this concept, and it's not a good approach. So focusing on the wrong things will just destroy a budget really fast. You'll go through 200 hours making some amazing systems and realize that you have neglected the entire rest of the application. Yeah, at the end of the day, though, no matter how bad you destroy your budget, you have to do a good job. So that's kind of on you. It's your loss. So you have to, avoid, over-aggressive budgets. Avoid focusing on the wrong thing, because if you don't do a good job, that's cutting at the very core of your business. For a small team of just technical professionals, that's all. Your reputation is all you have. I mean, maybe you have somebody who can just shovel work at you and they don't care how well you do it. And maybe that makes you happy and contributes to a good lifestyle for you. But I think most of us want to do a really exceptional job. I mean, we'll travel across the world, right, to show up at technical conferences. So if you do really mess up, you have to kind of take responsibility for it as quickly as possible. The client might have a huge marketing push for their application, and they need to be notified, and you have to figure out as quickly as possible if something's gone wrong, and you will lose money. You'll lose money until you can kind of figure out how to keep all this from happening. It's just the thing. This is everything, every single time, no matter what. And so you can almost like think of your client projects as personal hobbies. So if you're running a little late, I feel like maybe working through the weekend or something. It's not great, but it's what you have to do to make up for it. And kind of the way we mitigate these risks is we divide our projects up into phases, and it's basically like the whole agile programming, strategize and sprint loop, but it's on like a larger basis. So each phase of a project kind of represents important individual aspects of that project. So what you're essentially doing is you're breaking down a complicated, significant sized project into a bunch of smaller projects. Each of these projects are invoiced individually and are, focused on entirely separately. So let's see. Yeah, and so with phasing as well, you can say we have X features in this phase. Kind of like go back here. To establish the foundation of the application, we have to create, set up our host, get our framework configured, kind of get the basic infrastructure, our user authentication, these number of things, and then we budget out how long that's going to take. And since it's such a small amount of work compared to the entire scope of the actual feature list, then it's a lot easier to get this right. And similarly, if you kind of go over a little bit or under a little bit, you can reassess the future phases and kind of update those. So it's an interesting ramification, actually, of dividing one project into individual smaller, like mini projects, is that since you invoice at the end of each phase, a lot of times your client can approve a larger overall application budget because it's distributed over maybe multiple quarters. So it's kind of nice to have a little bit extra room to play. Yeah, so phases, they have a lot of advantages. At the end of each phase, you can stop and say, are we 50 hours over budget? How does everything look? There's this funny phenomenon where programmers can do as much discovery as they need to and figure out how your business translates to the web. But what you believe is the correct solution at the beginning and what you believe is the correct solution at the end are invariably different things. Similarly, your client may have an idea of exactly what they want, but by the end of the project, you've led them through all of these ramifications and consequences that they simply didn't have the expertise to consider. Programmers are essentially just algorithmic machines, so you're always having to think things through to a degree that they haven't probably. So you have the chance to, at the end of each phase, have your client kind of come back and say, actually we realized that things changed, and then you can stop without losing really any progress, reassess the rest of the phases, and kind of decide, is this budget still going to work? Are we going to add features? Are we going to remove features? How are we going forward? And so basically you do discovery for the whole project. You divide the project into like feature lists, and then from there you segment it into phases, and I'll go more into that in a moment. So yeah, no more scope creep. Yeah, I already talked about that. Yep. The client gets what neither you nor they realize they needed. And this is what I was just talking about. Things change. They realize things. You realize things. And with a more flexible project structure, you end up with a product that you didn't envision in the beginning. And it's in everybody's best interest. So here's an example. I want to create LaravelNerds.com, right? And it's basically just, you can chat in a forum, post events. Maybe you have like an awesome meetup or something like we have in Amsterdam. We have Amsterdam Laravel meetups every month or so. Search for local developers, manage a friends list, and send private messages as an excuse to have features up here. Then we divide that all down into user authentication, event stuff, forum stuff, messaging stuff, and identity design, right? And so we turn that into a series of phases. So in phase 1, we're not looking to ship the site. We're just looking to have something up and running on a staging system, and the client can go and log in and interact with some basic level of functionality. And this gives them the idea that, okay, so I have this system, and when they use it, even if they can only just log in and see their logo up and some very basic functionality, all of a sudden it's so much more real to them. And at this point, they're coming back with information that they had no idea that they had to present to you. And you're able to take this and kind of look at your next phases and see what you should be doing. For phase 2, usually we end up with a public launch on phase 2. We had the entire design implemented and some kind of important feature to the site. So at this point, we have events and login, and so this is an event site. So maybe that's not what you want to launch. Maybe you have a different vision for the marketing and everything for your site, so you would just replace this with whatever's appropriate. But yeah, so we're an event site now, and that's all we do. We can start getting people in here and get some feedback and see how people are actually using the system. Then we ask ourselves, is this the business that we wanted to be running, or has this changed? And if it's changed, again, we revisit the project plan. If we realize that there's maybe some stuff in this site that we never even considered, like people have all these great ideas, and it's actually a better idea than we originally had. So let's change the plan a little bit. Phase 3 is just a number of social features. I would probably usually have a forum as its own phase, because there's no such thing as good forum software. Actually, I would pay good money for somebody to write a composer package that was just an easily integratable forum. Just like not a general thing, just a niche system you just drop into a site and configure. But there's nothing out there. It's terrible. And just some really super even numbers. For each phase, we estimated about 100 hours. And a small team can knock through 100 hours reasonably in a couple weeks. But you probably don't want to actually think about this. So 3 weeks of time is a general guideline. You need to blow this stuff up a lot, because for a small team working on 1 or 2 actual projects at a time, it's a lot of going back and forth. And when you add like a third major project for like 2 people, it's impossible. It's just terrible. And so this 9 weeks needs to what is this, like a month and a half, right? Or no, I'm not very good at stuff. So 2 months, and in reality, you have to be dealing with all these other concepts. Like you're continuing client acquisition the whole time. You're doing discovery for new clients and their projects, and not only that, you have the increased benefit of the longer a project takes to complete from beginning to end, the more built-in time you have for things to go wrong and to be fixed. You're waiting on your client. You're waiting for authorized.net. You have a lot of stuff to deal with. So if it's all really compressed, you have to do a lot at one time, and you better have a really good project manager or somebody really good at this stuff to get all compressed into that, because otherwise it's just going to be a constant crunch. Kind of summarize some of this stuff, and I have some more things after this to talk about that I can take some questions that people have, but this is really big to me. I don't think that you should, ideally work anywhere where you're not happy, and I certainly don't think that you should make a company that's just going to eat away at your quality of life. Being really stressed out is a big deal. So we're really into trying to find sustainable algorithms for working with clients and managing the work and still being able to feed our kids, right? And the reality is, like, large projects are impossible to properly manage, but if you divide them up into small projects, everything is just so much easier. If you get into phase 2 of a project and the client realizes, okay, I actually don't have any money at all, you've saved yourself quite a bit of wasted time. And if you have a contract or something, you can, I don't know, maybe go after them. But it doesn't seem necessary. It just seems like you get paid for the work that you're doing, and you do a small amount of work, small enough amount of work that you're not really ever losing out too much, and it's just really easy to manage. And these are my own kind of small things that were important to me. Multitasking is a mess. If you end up taking, and I've been guilty of this a bit. You take on too much work, and the projects slow down so much. And nothing seems to come. Your clients are asking, where is this? Where is this? And you're still working around the clock. You're still doing things that you need to be doing, but inevitably people get neglected, and you start implementing bad code, and that just exacerbates the problem. So, don't take on too much work. 2 or 3 people can take like 2 major jobs at a time with some smaller, like maybe design only work or something on the side. If you can take on more, then I'm impressed. You have to use a standard contract. Everybody has to use it. I'm not even going to talk about this. Just watch this video. The guy's great, and he has his lawyer, and they go through everything, and this is really influential to me. So, get a really good standard contract. It doesn't really cost that much money. It's not that big a deal. So typically what I would have done is taken a feature list and sat down to start programming. Okay, so I need to knock this out, just 1, 2, 3. What I found out is if I don't actually set deadlines for every single thing that I'm doing, then, there's like a law where the time it takes to do something will expand to the time available. If every couple of days demands some real significant amount of progress from yourself, then you'll be able to stay on track, and you'll also be able to say, hey, I'm behind, and I need to tell people, or I need to readjust my strategy to handle that. But you absolutely shouldn't be working from a feature list. It's not a good way of approaching things. Just work from deadlines and just progress through those, and you'll be just instantly more productive. A lot of this is really obvious, but the thing I want to talk about mostly is just be honest about your limitations. So when a client, when you're talking to a client, I've actually heard people act, they speak in a way that says, the royal we, and they're trying to act like they're a large, important organization. But a lot of times people want to work with small companies who are talented and who know what they're doing. And so it makes a lot of sense to just be yourself and be honest. We're only a couple people. We don't really have the resources for this. Here's what we can do. What do you think? And then just kind of work it out with them and be honest. And I really think that's an important thing to bring up. So This was an important thing for us too. If you can't educate your client that something that they want is maybe not the optimal way of approaching it, then you can find people who can do that. Like content strategists are amazing, and if you can find a good content strategy company, they will come at your client with real numbers, and they will be able to essentially convince you that this is the right approach for your business. What's your goals? Let's look at where you're at and what you've been doing, and let's see how we can measure the success of this system if we change our bounce rate, increase our conversion rate, and any number of metrics, whatever's important to your client. So your client, when they come to you, they have a goal, and usually it's not this needs to be prettier. It's we need something that's going to improve our business and make us more money. For us, it's this company, Love and Science, and it's a two-person organization, right? Two people, and they're amazing, and they really know their stuff. And if you can find people like them, and excuse me, who can come to your clients and just say, "Bam, here's some numbers," then you don't have to have arguments or be trying to convince them that your way is better for their application. You can have a situation where you can do a good job, know you're doing right by them, and not have to deal with the fact that you don't know or don't have the budget for yourself to learn how to analyze the numbers and figure out what's scientifically correct for their situation. So this is really important. I really think that finding partners that are really good at what they do and leveraging their skills against your own skills is absolutely vital when you're a small team. So that's the end of this, and we can be reached here, but honestly, we can be reached everywhere. Just go on IRC and Laravel, and you can talk to us at 24 hours a day. I don't really sleep. I'm there all the time. When Taylor's talking about IRC parties, like 3 of us who don't ever leave. So yeah, that's that, and I guess I'm open to questions. Yeah. So can I talk about how Laravel helped on my client projects? So we did everything. Justin, my partner slash designer, and I have made something like 40 sites in CodeIgniter. And then about a year and a half, I was getting a little frustrated with all the deep modification that I had to make to the core libraries to do the things that kind of fit my workflow. We were about to move to Rails. We had built our application, our site on Rails, and we were pretty much like just entirely leaving PHP. And then I don't know how I came across Laravel. I think Dale mentioned it or something in IRC. And I'm like, okay, well, let's check it out. And I was really, it was Laravel 2 at the time, and I was really interested in the way routing was done. And it seemed like here I have something that I can, I don't have to hack a bunch of stuff. I can write things the way I want to write them. And so that was really great. And we basically immediately started using Laravel, and we haven't looked back. So we have like 6 Laravel apps in production on Laravel 3. I originally wrote heybigname.com on Laravel 2, but I migrated it to 3 just for like my own learning purposes. And we're about to do a 500-hour CMS in Laravel 4, and everything that we do is going to be 4 going forward. So at this point in time, every new project is going to be 4. So how it helped our company, I feel like I don't have to jump through hoops. I can use real object-oriented design, whereas previously I felt like I was throwing procedural PHP into classes, and I was not really happy with that. And I always wanted to improve my workflow and create like tools that I could reuse where that was appropriate. Wake up. And Laravel really let me do that, whereas what the tools I was using before, I felt really handicapped. And as a software developer, you really have to be given the chance to do things your way, emphasize your strengths, and Laravel did that for us. John? Why are we named Big Name and not Little Name? Well, why would we be named Little Name? It seems pretty big to me, man. We sat down and we had like all these ideas, and we had a huge list. And Justin's wife, she's like brilliant with this stuff. I don't know what about it is, but she had just had all these ideas, and we just kind of brainstormed on them. And big name was kind of interesting, and we had a couple offshoots from that. And there's sounds kind of pretentious. Let's do that, right? Here. Have I had to fire a client? Yes and no. So we, if we're talking to a client, so the first thing that happens is we have a get to know you call, right? And then from there, we judge their product and say, we believe it's going to be this much time for discovery, and then we charge them our hourly rate for discovery. And at the end of that, they have a project document that has basically all the stuff that we've learned in this document, and that's their asset. At that point in time, we are not obligated to continue the relationship. We did that chunk of work, and they have something to show for it. They can take that document and shop it to any number of web firms and get quotes for the rest of the application. But we provide our budget and everything up front. So we have a good relationship with the client. We kind of get to know them before we ever commit to working on the project. And so consequently, we've been we've been able to avoid a lot of trouble. But there has been times when like a long-term maintenance project has kind of gotten out of hand, and the needs of the client have escalated to a point where we're no longer able to satisfy them. So in that context, I mean, we have had to leave projects or refer them to other places. Yeah, right here.
Any special advice for part-time freelancers?
Any special advice for part-time freelancers? I really think that you should charge for everything except for the initial call. Just make sure that the client knows your hourly rate. Make sure that your hourly rate's able to sustain your life. And if the client can't pay for it, it doesn't matter, because you still need that money. You need to be paid the right amount. Otherwise, you can't sustain your business. So making sure that you have a reasonable price point and that you're actually getting paid for your work, and not just saying, I have this project. And it's 40 hours, and then the clients may be difficult, or situation happens, and you run up to 60 hours. You can charge hourly for that. You don't have to charge at a project price. And there's been many projects where we've charged hourly despite giving budgetary guidelines. And it's never been a problem for us. So we really think charging hourly is better for everybody involved anyway. So combined with the smaller projects, and which are easier to manage and easier to estimate out, it works out, I think. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for startups that have small development teams that want to grow their development teams, but they need to contract out to other firms?
Okay, small development teams that want to grow but have to deal with contracting out to vendors for that work in the process. I haven't really been in that situation. Justin and I kind of decided that we would just not grow, unless, we have this synergy where we have worked together for a long time, and I haven't touched CSS since I met him like 5 or 6 years ago, and that's really been amazing. So thank you, Justin. And I'm freed up, and he's freed up, and we don't step on toes. He chooses his tech, and I choose my tech, and that's that. But so bringing somebody into that situation is kind of messy, right? So how do you find somebody who is going to maintain that energy level in the business, and who's going to fit in with you? For us, I don't have any experience finding a vendor, but we did recently hire a developer, and all I can say about that is find the best possible person who would be happy working with you, and pay them what you need to, as long as it doesn't break the bank, right? Because the quality of their skills are going to directly translate to the quality of your business. The skill set of your team determines what type of jobs you can take. If you have a very skilled team, you can choose high level, large, heavily architected projects, but if your team is specifically focused on certain skills in certain areas, that's going to really limit on your options. So I give up. So yeah, the opportunity that comes from choosing a really good team member is just it's a no-brainer. Just never hire anybody that isn't better than you if you can avoid it, right? Hey, here.
How do you deal with, and maybe, I don't know if you've had the situation like this before or not, but how do you deal with ethical dilemmas when a client asks? Like maybe they want to start storing credit card numbers or something like that, and you just really don't want to handle that because you don't feel your expertise can handle the security involved or something to that effect.
Right. So so the question is, how do you handle ethical dilemmas such as um, being required to handle some security situation that you're not comfortable with
Or maybe
handling?
they want to make information public about their users that maybe you
Okay.
don't feel comfortable with.
So for us, I mean, we're really idealistic. We're just idealistic people, and we don't do anything that we feel is unethical or just not even in the best interests of our clients or us. We just won't do it. But if it's a matter of knowledge, you can find somebody who has the requisite knowledge, and your team should be able to be brought up pretty, reasonably quickly, brought up to speed on what you have to do. So no, I mean, we're not going to do anything unethical, and you should just never, you just be cool people, man. You know. Here, that's a really good question because what's it called? Emissions and error insurance, yeah, error and emissions. Um, I don't want to talk too much about my situation, but I think it's probably a good idea, right? So your standard contract's probably going to protect you from a certain amount of liability. You have to have a reasonable lawyer put that together. But no, I don't feel really qualified to talk about that. So I hear.
Forgive me if this doesn't apply to you necessarily, but you said you've got a phased approach. So
Uh-huh.
at the end of each phase, you do a reflection to make sure everything's on budget, everything's going ahead as planned. Who do you make responsible for that as your team grows? Do you make the developer responsible for it? Do you assign a lead developer to handle it for everybody? Or maybe in the case of project manager, do you hire somebody to take care of that?
Okay, so the question is, as your team grows and when you're handling everything on a phase-based approach, who is responsible for reflecting on the previous phase and determining how things should go forward? And this is something I don't really know how to answer because for us, it's just going to be our whole team. We're going to sit down and we're just going to all talk about what happened, and how we feel things should be done. So as your team grows, I mean, it makes sense that some people are subdivided in a hierarchical structure, but I mean we're three people, and I don't expect us to become 4 or 5 anytime soon. We want to be small, and I haven't thought through that at that level. Is anybody else here?
Do you guys track your time to better inform subsequent projects?
Yeah, okay, the question is, do we track our time to inform subsequent projects? And absolutely, yes. We track pretty much everything that's reasonable to track. Right now, we're basically using Asana for task tracking, and we're clocking our time with FreshBooks, which it's a really good service, and they have an amazing API. So you're talking about Campaign Monitor. Well, you should check out FreshBooks too. The API is great. So we actually have software that we're able to have tasks and match them up with our to-dos, and that's kind of something that we're working on kind of making into a thing. But so we track everything and make all of the clock time very descriptively is described effectively, because so often, I mean, we can just go into FreshBooks and say, create an invoice, and the client is going to know exactly what every single bit of time went to. And when you're charging your clients on an hourly basis, that's a very reasonable thing to expect. So when you're clocking time, when we're clocking time, it's like we're clocking time for the client, not for us. We're clocking, our descriptions are for the client, and so we take it really seriously, and it can help us know, okay, what were we working on? where did things go wrong or right, and it's important to be able to reflect on that. So I really feel like you have to measure these things, because your business is, you have income, and that income is derived from your work, and that work is a certain number of hours, and to measure these things, to not measure these things is just fundamentally irresponsible. Uh, do we use open source systems? Okay, the question is, do we use open source systems like CMSs when required? And I would like to say yes, but we don't really take a lot of jobs like that, right? I mean, sometimes every once in a while we do a WordPress theme for like a friend, like a company that's been good to us. But we're kind of about custom web apps, and that's kind of what we do. And each of our web apps is designed specifically for that client's workflow. So we figure out, okay, when their employees sit down and interface with the system, how is that done? And then, we customize everything to try to improve that. So we don't have, standard modules that go into a product and then are sold. We do reuse code, but honestly, Laravel removes so much boilerplate that I can just rebuild functionality just like that, and I can make it custom tailored to that application. And if the needs change, I just take a minute and refactor it, and that's just how we go.
One last question. Anybody?
Justin, you have any questions? No, I'm good. Okay. Here, right here. How long have I owned LaravelNerds.com? Like 3 days. So I guess that's
all right. Yep, we're good.